Renzo, as usual, I have a question for you.
I love when you start these episodes with a question. Fire away.
Okay. Considering the unstoppable stream of events, for not calling them bad news necessarily, that we are
Oh.
experiencing, are you more hooked than ever to the radio, the TV, your device, the newspaper, or are you like an ostrich?
Like an ostrich?
Como el avestruz.
Oh. Enterrando la cabeza como un avestruz. Is that what you mean?
Yes, and that's our expression today, of course.
For Just a Spanish Phrase, the podcast where we dive deep into the origins and uses of common Spanish idiomatic expressions.
And we are the companion podcast of News in Slow Spanish.
Of
We
course.
have a huge list of idiomatic expressions. If you don't want to listen to the news, you can at least listen to the idiomatic expressions in Spanish.
That's right. If you don't want to listen to the news, you have to do like the ostrich. Tienes que hacer como un avestruz.
And what does that mean? The ostrich. Yeah, what does that mean? Doing like the ostrich.
So-
Hacer como el avestruz.
Literally, what we're saying is doing like the ostrich in Spanish is hiding your head in the ground like an ostrich. That's what we're saying in Spanish. Hacer como un avestruz, that's the shorthand for it. And then the full phrase is enterrar la cabeza como un avestruz. Bury your head like an ostrich. And the idea is really simple. If you're surrounded by bad news, if you're trying to avoid bad news, or say you get one piece of bad news and you don't want to hear more, you bury your head in the ground and you can't listen to anything else.
And pardon my ignorance, and I'm going to come back to the question I asked. You're not escaping this time,
Right.
like you have escaped multiple times
I
to my
try
questions.
every time.
But do ostriches like really bury their heads in the sand?
It's a great question. So why don't we take this opportunity to explore the actual origin of the phrase? So first of all, in English, those of you listening right now, we do have a very similar phrase, but we leave out the ostrich. The common expression in English is bury your head in the sand. But as you can see, it comes from the same place. The origin for hacer como un avestruz and bury your head in the sand, it's tied together by the same incorrect myth. So-
okay, I'm curious.
That's right. It is a incorrect assumption or interpretation of a real behavior observed in, of course, the ostrich, that very large flightless bird native to the African continent. So, interestingly, as I was doing my research, most people attribute the origin of burying your head in the sand for the English expression, or hacer como un avestruz for the Spanish version, to Pliny the Elder, which we've heard about a lot. That's one of the...
Our friend Pliny.
Our
old friend Pliny.
You know, his historical writings, his tomes, survived through history and became the source for a lot of expressions and beliefs later on. But this one in particular, it's interesting because in the first century, when Pliny was writing, the idea of the ostrich hiding its head in the sand was already around. There was actually a historian 200 years earlier, Diodorus Siculus, a Greek, who first observed this behavior in ostriches and said that the ostrich would hide its head in the sand to avoid predators. So that's the first time that we get this interpretation of the ostrich hiding to avoid its problems, its predators.
But it doesn't sound like a very efficient technique.
No.
You know, when I was 5 years old and my mom took me to the big city in the subway, I used to close my eyes, and I thought that by closing my eyes, I was avoiding people from looking at me, because if I cannot see them, they cannot see me.
That's right. And in psychology, I think there's a developmental touchstone in the life of every child where that is a common thing, where you, if you can't see someone, then you believe or you feel like they can't see you.
Exactly. You think you have an invisibility
Cloak.
cloak. Do you
Well,
think that's what the ostrich is doing? It's like, oh,
well
if I put my
my
head
head
in
in
the
the
sand, my
sand.
big body would not be noticed.
Well, that's what these two historians thought, which is really a perfect example of two people being very confidently incorrect. So what's interesting about these two, Siculus in Greece in the 1st century BC, and then uh, Pliny the Elder in the 1st century AD, both talking about the ostriches, they both thought they're hiding their heads in the sand. One of them, the Greek, thought that the ostriches were really smart because the head was the most vulnerable part of their body. I don't know where he got that idea. But then 200 years later, Pliny the Elder said, ostriches, he concluded, are stupid. Because if they hide their head in the sand, the rest of their bodies, the meaty, large body that the
The
predator wants
edible
to eat,
part.
yes, is still exposed. But the truth is that both of these gentlemen were incorrect. Ostriches do often, sometimes many times a day, stick their heads into holes in the ground, but not because they're hiding from predators. Because ostriches, unlike other birds, don't build nests out of twigs and sticks. They dig holes in the ground to lay their eggs. So when you see ostriches putting their heads in holes in the ground, it's 90% of the time, most often, to adjust their eggs in their nest.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating. So they do put their hands in the sand.
That's right, they do, but not to run away from their problems. If they wanted to run away from their problems, I think they can run at 70 kilometers an hour, so they can just literally run away from their problems. They don't have to stick their heads in the sand.
This reminds me, it's a little bit out of subject, but I went to South Africa once, by the way, beautiful country. And I had my backpack and I went into a souvenir shop and accidentally I bumped into an ostrich egg, which are
Oh.
gigantic. And of course, the store had the sign, you break, you buy. So
Did you break it?
I did break it because the gigantic ostrich egg fell into the floor, but it just had a crack. So it still looked beautiful. It was like a carve, so you can put a candle inside. But I was backpacking and I had to buy a gigantic ostrich egg and carry that egg throughout a whole road trip in South Africa.
Oh,
My sister
wow.
made so
Yeah.
much fun of
And
me.
it was cracked, so
And it was cracked. I used it. I brought it back to the US. I used it as a little lamp. It was worth it, but I would have never bought a very expensive, by the way, ostrich egg.
I just had a really dark thought that that store probably had a room full of ostrich eggs and it's a tourist trap.
It could very well be. They place it in the places where like
Where
they
it's
can
gonna crack.
easily get cracked. But let's go back to our initial question.
Yes, hacer como el avestruz. So to do like the ostrich, to bury your head in the sand in English. What are some examples of
Well,
when
exactly
we do this?
what I just asked you at the beginning of this episode.
You're not
Are
going to let me
you
get away with it.
burying your hand in the sand and avoiding the news or just reading the headlines to get an
Yeah.
idea, but trying not to watch the videos, trying not to see certain things, or you're like all in?
I'll be honest. Part of me wants to do like the ostrich. Quiero hacer como el avestruz. Quiero enterrar mi cabeza, but I can't. Recently, I've been all in and keeping up with all the news, especially with what's been happening recently in Minneapolis with the raids, the operations from ICE against immigrants there, but also targeting and hurting all types of people, not just immigrants. Not that they should be hurting anybody, but
I couldn't watch the video. I knew it's like, if you want to know what really happened, watch the video. And I was like,
we're talking about the killing of Renee Good.
Yes. Rest in peace. And I had to enterrar mi cabeza como el avestruz, read the articles, know what happened, heard the declaration of different parts, but I cannot watch everything, especially the graphic images and
And I don't fault you for that, of
yes,
course. No. But you're keeping yourself informed.
of course.
So you're not hiding away from your problems. And I think that's one of the things that we can all do is keep ourselves informed and be ready when these issues, when these problems start knocking on our doors. We're not caught with our heads in the sand.
That's a whole other episode, how to be ready. But thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode
Oh,
of.
our listeners, yes, I'm sure they don't have their heads in the sand when it comes to expressions or the news because they listen to news in slow Spanish. So clearly they like to keep up with the news.
Or learning a new language just in case.
Just in case you have to go somewhere?
Yes.
That's true. Well, thanks again for listening to Just a Spanish Phrase, and we'll be back
Next
soon
week.
with more.
Adios.